Hey guys, and this is just a quick video overviewing Italian battleships. And I thought I would make this video firstly because I haven't made a video in a little while, but also because of the fact that on the forum and just in general, I've noticed that there are a lot of people who seem to struggle with Italian builds and using Italian battleships and their relative effectiveness. So we're going to look at all of the ones that Wizards of the Coast made today, and we'll go over their strengths and weaknesses and why you should or shouldn't take certain units, and why, even though it seems like you may not want to take some units, they may be better than you think. So we're going to start off with the three ships of the Vittorio Veneto class. So we have first the Roma, was released in set 5. The Roma's 50 points, has flagship 2, pretty good main guns, 15, 15, 13, 11. Pretty good secondaries, but however, they lack tertiaries. Decent AA. The armor, vital armor, and hull points are average for a battleship. Extended range 4 and torpedo defense 1. So, on the face of it, this is a pretty unspectacular unit. It looks like pretty much almost the most standard battleship you can imagine. And it's 50 points, which is a little bit pricey. There are some battleships that do this kind of role for a little bit less than this on the Allied, and even the Axis side. I mean, look at the Nagato, which also has tertiaries and the same, if not better, gun ratings, but it also has the flagship too. So, this ship you may not want to take very often, or at least it may not look enticing because of the fact that also one of the biggest things with Italian builds is the fact that you use smoke, and we'll get into that a little bit more with the Littorio, the next ship in our lineup. However, the Roma is a pretty important ship because of the fact that the only other ship in the Regia Marina for Italy in war at sea that has flagship 2 is the heavy cruiser Gorizia, and that's not a very durable unit that you're going to be keeping in the back or trying to hold on to that flagship bonus with. You're going to want to use that unit up front. So if you're really looking for a flagship bonus, Roma's a good choice. Better choice than Gorizia for the flagship. But other than that, it's pretty much just the Veneto, which we'll look at in a minute. But next we get to the Littorio. Littorio's same cost of Roma and same everything else ratings-wise, except for the fact that she doesn't have the flagship 2 and trades it off for sharpshooter. So whenever this unit attacks a unit that has concealment, your opponent must roll a 6 on his or her concealment roll to negate this unit's attack. So that means, even regardless of what range you are at, if you are firing into a smoke sector, they have to roll 6 to stop it. They can't get a 5 or 6 at certain ranges like it normally would be. And that's incredibly handy because of the fact that the Italians make use of smoke in a lot of their builds because of the fact that their battleships are weak to try to cover them. So Littorio might be the most useful Vittorio Veneto class battleship, especially since in order to smoke first, you really need to lose the initiative, and having a flagship bonus of 2 is not exactly going to help you do that with the Roma. So I'd imagine that this one is probably the most useful for the standard Italian build. You want to probably be taking this most of the time. However, there are builds that can work Roma and her flagship 2 bonus in for that 50 points. So now we come to the first and the original Littorio or Vittorio Veneto class battleship, whichever classification you call it, but the Vittorio Veneto. And this one cuts 1 point back and has all the same stats, except it doesn't have any special abilities other than the extended range 4 and torpedo defense 1, which was standard on both of these other units. So, looking at it, this unit may seem actually the worst, if any, to take because it doesn't really have a benefit to it. However, it does have its own benefit, and its benefit is that it costs 1 point less and gives you the same stats you get for any of these other 2 ships. And I think that's incredibly useful because oftentimes in builds, particularly lower point builds, where you will be seeing these battleships used a lot more often, you need every point you can scrape up, and so that just makes this unit all the more conducive to be fitting in a fleet, say down at the 100 point level. And even though this is only 1 point more, and 1 point more may not seem like a lot, 1 point more can upgrade several units that will give you much, much better units rather than the one you would have taken to have this unit. So it's trade-offs. So it depends. I still think the Vittorio Veneto has some use with regards to economics, but a lot of people don't. And now we move on to the smaller battleships in Italy's fleet. We have the Caio Duilio class battleships over here. We have the Caio Duilio, and she has decent main gunnery, 13, 12, 11, 10. So it's definitely on the lower side. You're looking at more of a Scharnhorst battlecruiser type of gunnery rating. Her secondaries, however, are pretty good. They reach out to range 3, and they're 6.554. So not bad. The AA is still the same. The armor is reduced by 1. Everything down in the defensive status here has been reduced by 1, 7, 13, 4, compared to the 8, 14, 5. She has flagship 1, extended range 4, torpedo defense, and covering fire. So covering fire is a very good special ability. Whenever this unit attacks a ship during the surface attack phase, during its next turn, that ship gets a -1 on each attack when making gunnery rolls against units other than this target. So Duilio might have a very important role in your fleet with regards to your other battleships that you might use. So say you take the Vittorio Veneto, for example, and Duilio, and you're concerned about the enemy Rodney that is going to attack your Vittorio Veneto likely next turn, because your Vittorio Veneto can't really afford a Rodney, say, attacking it at maybe even point-blank range or even at standoff range. So you have your Duilio fire onto the Rodney, and now the Rodney is either going to have to shoot at the Duilio or use his attack against the Veneto but have a -1 on each die. So I think this unit makes a very excellent supporting unit, and also even as a main unit in the 100-point fleet builds, because it leaves you plenty of points to buy other things that the Italians will definitely want in those 100-point fleet builds. So of the small battleships, the Caio Duilio is probably the best, but the most expensive. Dropping down 2 points, we get to her sister ship, the Andrea Doria. Same gunnery, same secondary, same AA, same armor, vital armor, extended range 4, torpedo defense. But she has a different special ability called Harassing Fire 5. While on damage, this unit can make a range 5 main gunnery attack using its range 3 value. It only scores a hit while using on a 6 while using this ability. And this is a decent special ability, but it's really hard to make work. The key to this special ability is to use it on things that aren't battleships, like cruisers, because if you just roll 2 6s, that's a hit on most heavy cruisers. So you need to not shoot for the moon and try to score a critical hit on the enemy with, only 10 dice. I think that's a bit of a waste of an attack, but you can definitely still use this unit. It's not as useful as the Duilio, but it's 2 points cheaper. And it brings everything except for the flagship 1 and maybe a little bit of a not as good special ability, but it's a special ability that has some utility to it. It's not, say worse, it just is a different kind of flavor. Maybe a little less effective in the long run, but you have to try to do what you can, especially with Italian fleets, to improve your odds of winning, because if you're doing pure Italian fleets, even with just German air and submarines maybe, you are going to be facing an uphill battle. So finally we come to the last cheap battleship, the Giulio Cesare. And the Giulio Cesare has the same guns as the Andrea Doria, except for the fact that she sacrifices her range 3 secondary gunnery attack. And for a lot of people, this makes it a deal breaker, because the problem for the Cesare is she has no special abilities, and she misses that range 3 secondary attack. So for 1 point less than the Doria, you lose the nice special ability, and that doesn't really feel like it's worth 1 point. And so this unit gets played very rarely. It used to get played a lot more before the Caio Duilio came out in Condition Zebra, but now it barely sees any playtime. However, I still think you can use this unit effectively, particularly in larger point builds if you already have both of these and you want another ship that's going to do that. I would highly recommend that you go get the Forum mini card for her sister ship, the Conte Cavour, which is going to give you some better special abilities than this unit has for a good cost. So the Giulio Cesare is really the of all these battleships, and particularly of the small battleships, the last battleship you probably want to take. While it still has some use for economic cost, it's really worth it to just upgrade your battleship one point and get the Doria if you're only planning on using one small battleship. One of the biggest problems, as I'm wrapping up this video here, that has been brought up a lot is that the Italian battleships struggle against their counterparts in terms of the French being the Richelieu and the British. You have ships like the Rodney and the King George V class, which is actually the same point cost here, going up against these units. And where they really struggle with is not the fact with their armor. A lot of people have a problem with the fact that it's 8-14-5, and that's really hard to work against, say, something like a Rodney, which has very good guns. But the fact that their guns are just not strong enough really to break through an armor of 9 on a King George V or a Rodney. So what you really need to do is you need to use smoking units to cover these units and give them opportunities to attack the enemy. A lot of people say Sparvieros are good for taking out enemy battleships, and I'd say they work to an extent, but at the same time, you really need to try to find a way to give these units an advantage so that they can beat the enemy. So that wraps up my little video on Italian battleships. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.